Okay, so here we go. We are taking every learning target we've learned up to today, which is a lot, and we're wrapping them all up into one final problem with everything, okay? So it's time to kind of make sure you are on board with me. So let's do this. Let's kind of zoom in on number one and just focus on this. So right now, you don't, like we've done, if I get rid of this, we did this problem already, right? If I get rid of these two, we did this problem yesterday. Look at this problem. It looks small, but it involves all four learning targets. It involves some power of a power, right? It involves then, once I find that power of that power, I have to find the products. And then I take that product and find the quotient, all with negatives. So this is like the Mac Daddy of them all problems, all of these. Well, actually, these ones down here are pretty crazy, but okay. But you have to be able to follow me on these little ones so we can get to the bigger ones too. So where do you think we should start? Do you see any parentheses that mean multiply? Or that has an operation within the parentheses that I can do? There is no operation. It's just an a to the 8th. So that does not mean do those parentheses, right? After parentheses, you do exponents. I see an exponent. And that exponent is negative. But that's okay. I'm not going to move anything right now. And here's the awesome part about this. Could you, if you wanted to? Do you think if you took this whole thing down here and made it a to the 8th to the positive second power and then multiplied it with this and then divided it, that you would get the same answer? Yeah. Okay? So watch what we're going to do. So I am going to do this in a different color so it shows up a little bit better. So let's take first. This is like order of operations. Only redo one thing at a time, and if you didn't do that other things, then you recopy them, right? So let's just do this very first step. I'm going to do 8 times negative 2, and I'm going to get a to the negative 16th times negative 2a to the 3rd. Divided by negative a to the 10th. Okay? What I probably would have liked to do is I would have done just this in red to show you that that's the only thing I did in that one step. Okay? Then your work's going to get, I probably didn't leave you enough space, but write a little smaller if you can today. So then I have to decide what to do next. And this is a grouping symbol, the division is, so I have to do this next. Do I have to move that negative 16 right now? No. Can I combine it to see if it's going to be a positive and then move it later? Okay. It's not. It's going to stay negative because 16 is bigger than 3, right? So you can add it now and then move it, or you can move it and then add it. Okay. I'm really trying to get you to see that there's lots of ways for you to do this. You got to find the way that's best for you. For me personally, I think it's easier to just do the operation and then deal with it after. Okay? Because if this 16 was positive and that 3 was negative, would I end up having to really move it? No. So, let's do this. That's a negative 1, or positive 1. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. Negative 16 plus a positive 3 is negative 13 over negative a to the 10th. Are you with me? Okay. So now my division problem is negative 2 divided by negative 1, which is positive 2 over 1, right? And then where is this 13 that's negative going to go? Down. Okay, I could have just circled the 13. So this answer is going to be 2 over, and what am I going to do with that negative 13 when I bring it down? I'm really going to add it, right? Well, I'm going to add a 13, but I'm going to subtract a negative 13. So this answer is actually going to be a to the 23rd. Whew. With me? That one wasn't too bad. That was a pretty good, easy way to start off. All right, let's come back to number 2 in a minute. Let's try number 3 right now. It's a very similar problem, right? So let's take care of the exponent on the outside first. Let's recopy that 2x to the 5th. We're going to divide whatever it is by x to the 8th. This is going to give me, now those of you who did this on the last test, be careful. This is 1 to the third power. Don't write a 3, please. Because 1 to the third power does not mean 1 times 3. Many of you did that. This is just x to the negative 6th. So, technically, I could move the 6 down, make it a positive, then add it with the 8. If that's how you want to do it, go ahead. I'm just going to do my operation and then deal with it. So, 2 times 1 is 2. I'm going to keep this here. 5 plus negative 6 is negative 1. And I have a 2 there. And then I'm going to do what next? Divide and subtract. So take the smaller to the larger. And when you're subtracting a negative, you really add. So this answer will be 2 over x to the 9th. Okay? I want you to try number 4 right now. Hello. Yep, no problem. Okay, bye-bye. Okay, who is that? You need to throw that away, please. There's certain things I can ignore, but that was a little obnoxious. Whoops. Okay, can't even concentrate. See? Maybe not even able to add. Okay, so that is going to be negative 5. So we have our 2. Is it becoming more and more obvious when you're supposed to multiply them? You're like, okay, I multiply them. Like, you shouldn't have to stop and think anymore. So when it's outside, you multiply. Here you're going to add, so that's negative 5. Okay? The 4 is going to stay put, right? It's fine where it's at. Then I'm going to take the smaller exponent up to the larger one and subtract it, which means I'm really adding 5. Okay? All right? Let's have you try, let's do number 6 together, okay? So here I got 2 things to take care of, all right? This is a good problem. How would you start this? How would you suggest I start this one? Remember what I said? Yeah. Yeah, okay? But because there's nothing in these parentheses to do, I got to take care of this 4 and this negative 5. It's going to create a traffic jam in the numerator, but what would you recommend doing? Taking this whole base and moving it where? Because of that negative 5 right there? Moving it up. So let's do that. Let's take it's going to get crowded, u to the negative 10th, v to the negative 3rd to the 4th, times the u and then the v to the 9th. We're running out of room. I'm going to do this down here. U to the negative 10th, v to the negative 3rd to the 4th, times... And I kind of like when they're in parentheses better. That's total preference. Instead, they separate better for me. This one you have to put in parentheses. So that does not change. And only thing I did after all that was move this base to the numerator just to make that little bitty old negative go away. Okay? I'm probably going to have to move things back down to the denominator in a minute, but for right now, all of the exponents I need to take care of for now are positive. So let's do this all out. So before I start to multiply and add, I got to take care of this 4 and this 5. This is going to hang out, right? So I have u to the negative 10 times 4, v to the negative 3 times 4. Nothing going on right here because it didn't have an exponent there, right? Negative 2 to the 5th power. 5 is odd. It's going to be negative. That's 32. Make it negative. And then negative 9 times 5 is negative 45. Whew. Are you with me? Okay, now did I take care of all the exponents on the outside of the parentheses? Yes. And now in one swoop, I'm going to go through and multiply any coefficients and add the exponents. I have a 1 times a negative 32, which is negative 32. I have, let's look at all of our U's. I have 45 negatives, 40 negatives, so that gives me negative 85, but what? One little itty bitty positive there. That's going to be so easy to forget about, right? So these two negatives gives me negative 85. One positive gives me negative 84. Okay, I'm trying to go slow here. And now let's take care of the V's. None here, 9 here, 12 here, for a total of 3 negatives. And you know what to do next, right? Your very last step after you do all those operations is to, okay, I got it as simple as it's going to get. Now let's get those negative exponents where they belong. And the whole base has to move with it, correct? So my final answer is negative 32 over u to the positive 84th and v to the positive 3rd. Whew, got it? Okay, it seems crazy, but it's really not too bad. So let's head back up to, well, actually, I'm going to jump you around here. We're going to save number 8. Let's do number 7, because I don't think I need to do too many. And I want to give you some class time, too. All right. We already automatically know that 7 looks a little different. So on your next check for understanding, which I decided is Monday, by the way. Today's Wednesday. On your next check for understanding, you're going to have 2 kinds of problems. Ones that are the kind that we just did, and then ones where the whole problem is in parentheses. Yes, and raised to a power. Esteban.
How come it's easier to bring the negative exponent up when, like, on the top? This is what this one.
I know.
On
Number one.
There's the negative 2.
Yes.
How come we didn't bring that down?
You could have. You very well could have. You could have made this negative 2a to the 3rd over negative a to the 10th and moved this whole thing and made it a to the 8th to the positive 2nd. You could have done that if you wanted to. Okay, so remember me saying there's all kinds of ways to do it. So if your first instinct was to make that positive, then that's how you have to do it, because that's what your brain is telling you to do. And anything other than that natural course might, cause a mistake for you. So you could have totally done it that way, all right? Okay, let's take a look at 4. I'm going to start with 4 because the exponent on the outside is positive as opposed to negative. This is a whole nother thing we're going to do. I got a quick, easy fix for this. Okay, so number 7. Remember what I said. This burned some of you on the last quiz. Ignore it. Ignore it and then do what? Do it. Do what's inside. Get it as itty bitty teeny tiny reduced as you can. And then take that answer to the 4th power, right? So we can do that. Let's do it right now. So let's take this. Remember we had this discussion before about that's a negative, but so is this. Okay, so this negative could go up here with that 2. So that's going to become a positive, right? So we have 2 times negative 1, or negative 2 times negative 1, which is positive 2. X to the 0 is actually going to be what? Ooh, that's a good, this is a, okay, this is a good thing that we've not talked about yet. Do you know what I'm thinking? Okay, because anything to the 0 power is 1, but if this means take the opposite of x to the 0 power. What's x to the 0 power? 1, so what's the opposite of that? Negative 1. So that -1 times this -2 means my answer is going to be positive. That was a little tricky. Let me show you what I mean by that. Negative x to the 0 power is -1, but if I did negative x to the 0 power, what would that be? 1. Remember me talking about when it's in the parentheses or when it's not? This means the opposite of x to the 0 power. This means I want to take the whole negative x to the 0 power. Do you know what I mean? And if you punch that in your calculator, you would get two different answers, but I think you would expect, to get that positive one. So your answer is positive. We just figured all that out. So right now, ignore all those negatives, okay? Except for the exponent ones. So I now don't have any x's to add with this 8. So it's going to stay 8, yes? I have 2 y's and 9 more y's to get 11 y's. Then I have a 2 here and an x to the -3 and a y to the -7, okay? So at this point in time, you have a decision to make. Like Esteban said earlier, why don't you just move that -3 and that -7 up? You can. You can move them up and add them, or you can subtract them right as they are, right? Do you see what I mean? So I guess I want to show you what I mean. So I kind of feel like I'm just going to do the subtraction of it. So watch. This is getting brought up, smaller to larger, add it. Smaller to larger, add it. Okay? So it's 2 divided by 2, 1. 8 plus 3 is 11. 7 plus 11 is 18. Okay, but I'm not done yet. Do you know why? You were ready to stop, weren't you? I think I was ready to stop too until I remembered, oh, shoot, we got to take this whole thing to the 4th power. And that's a piece of cake. I got no negatives. I got learning target 3, 11 times 4, 18 times 4. Now we're done. Whew. There's a lot in one problem, isn't there? Are you following me, though? I feel like if you've been with me this whole trip, that you're like, this is easy. And that's crazy because some people are like, this is easy, and other people are like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. It's hard because you weren't with me every step at every checkpoint. You know what I mean? Okay, so let's take a look at, let's start with number 2. Let's go back to number 2. Do you remember that little trick that I taught you yesterday about when you're raising a fraction to a negative? I'll refresh your memory a little bit. We did 4/3 to the -2nd power, and the answer ended up being 9/16. Right? So if it was 4/3 to the +2nd power, it would have been 16/9, right? So what did I say when you're raising a fraction to a negative power? You make it 3/4 to the, so you can take the reciprocal of the positive. And I did yesterday AB to the -x, and you told me that was B over A to the +x, right? So, you think that little trick can help me out on number 2? Before I even start the problem, what should I do? Take the whole reciprocal of what's inside the parentheses. Should I change any negative exponents when I do that? No. Are you ready? Let's rewrite a whole new problem. It's going to be k to the -2nd here and -2k to the 7th times 2k to the 8th. And all that now is going to be to the +5th power. I am not going to take 32 and then 32 and then this. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to simplify it first. Cheyenne.
I'm still kind of confused why when you switch them, you don't change the exponent.
Because they're bases. They're not exponents. This whole thing is a base. Okay? So if I were to go back and say 4x to the negative 7th to the negative 6th power, this is a base. That negative exponent is part of the base, and the base never changes. Just the exponent is. And I know what you're saying, it's kind of weird, but it is an exponent. But it's actually the base instead. So the priority is it's a base, then the exponent. So that's why this becomes that. And it doesn't change because it's kind of in that little protected bubble. And it's a base. Bases don't change. That's all. Okay? All right. So let's get going here. Let's do negative 2 times positive 2 and get negative 4. 7 plus 8 is 15 over k to the negative 7th. And now I'm not going to bring this up, the whole k up. I'm not going to do this. I mean, look what I just did. Could you move the whole k up first and then add, as opposed to subtracting? Do you see that? That's really important for you to see. Like Esteban I know I keep referring to because you said that, to move it first. And maybe that might be an easier thing for you to do. You don't want to worry about, now, you're not worried about adding them, are you? When you bring up a negative, you might forget to add it and actually subtract it. If you move it first, then it's positive, right? Now you know you're adding it. But that's kind of an extra step that's not necessary unless you really need it. So this is going to be negative 4 over k to the 22nd. But I need to take all of that to the 5th power. And this is one of those where you're just going to use your calculator for that. And negative to an odd is negative. This is going to be 1,024. The same numbers keep popping up, don't they? And then 22 times 5 is 110. Whew. Did you get that? Okay. Try number 5. Esteban, go ahead.
What's the answer for number 7?
Number 7's answer was x to the 44th, y to the 72nd. Okay. Woo! This one's a doozy. You might need a calculator for this one. You're going to have some pretty big exponents. I mean, not huge, but in the hundreds. So go ahead and give that one a shot. And if you can get it, I'm sure you'll be great. You may need a little more room than is actually there. I'll wait for you guys to finish. Giving you guys hints as you go. So if you think you need to kind of look up, you can. Yeah, I thought I did put it down. No, I didn't. Okay, thank you. I brought it down and subtracted it, but I didn't put it in the right spot. Thank you. Okay, thank you. All right. Last step is 4 to the third power. Then you just multiply 43 times 3, which is going to be m to the 129th, n to the 153rd. Oh, did anybody get it? That's a lot of hands. That's good. Every little exponent, every little everything. Okay, if you did, that's great. If you didn't, there's still going to be time to practice it. So you have the packet. You have the rest of the back page to do.